problem is that the invective that was leveled from your community towards the other communities is the part that's ignored.
Obviously, a large community of 1,000 researchers is going to have a big bell curve of those who are able to play well with others and those who don't.
I mean, the trouble is that they claim it's such a beautiful theory. As far as I can see, it's a great mess. I mean, you've got the wrong number of space dimensions. You've got an argument to try and argue that you don't get enough energy to excite the extra dimensions. And I think that argument is wrong, actually, because the amount of energy is for the entire universe. It's not that you're building an accelerator to get up to a certain energy that's beyond the level of that accelerator. That's not the point. You've got that much energy, and all over the universe, things with a great deal of energy, and there's no reason why these shouldn't excite these extra dimensions. I think there's just a misconception in that. I don't want to go into it further, but it's a bit technical, but I think it's a misconception. And in a certain sense, there are too many theoretical physics communities which have wasted their time on this area rather than doing what I regard as more interesting topics. Even the question of quantum gravity, which has been brought up here, bringing quantum mechanics and gravitational theory together, sure, that's a very important thing to do. But quantizing gravity, in my view, okay, it's an interesting exercise, but it's not the important thing in bringing them together. The important thing in bringing them together, in my view, is to explain why quantum theory works. See, quantum theory works for tiny little things, if you like, but when you do what's called making a measurement, or you talk about big things, it doesn't work.
So string theory does not, at the moment, answer the question of the quantum measurement problem. And I agree with Roger that that's a critical question that has faced quantum mechanics really since its inception. So I agree that there are open questions that even string theory, as it's currently formulated, doesn't address. Has Roger addressed it with his approach that aspects of general relativity will be vital to the collapse of the wave function? It's a powerful and interesting idea. I've studied it. I'm not yet convinced of it, but it is among many ideas that people working in this arena have put forward. I'm glad that people are working on this key question of quantum mechanics. But in terms of the importance of quantizing gravity, I would take a somewhat different perspective than Roger's. Quantum mechanics is an established part of the way the world works. General relativity is an established part of the way the world works. If they can't play together, if when you combine them, you get nonsensical results, which was the state of play before string theory gave us a potential solution, then your physical description of the world is fundamentally inconsistent. And I don't think the universe is inconsistent, and therefore it is vital that we find a way to put the pillars of our previous understanding into harmony with one another. Eric mentioned perhaps there are other ways of doing it. Fantastic. I'm open to those ideas. But string theory, at least, is one approach that does that. And it's important, it's vital, and string theory not only achieves it, but to the question of beauty, let me just put forward the following. You do quantum mechanics of a string without any knowledge of general relativity. And just through the process of studying that quantum mechanical description of a string, general relativity emerges. It's forced upon you. It comes right out of the mathematics. If Einstein hadn't discovered general relativity, string theorists studying the quantum mechanical motion of a string would have found general relativity within the formulation itself. That's beautiful. That's breathtaking.
This is really weird. It's the post-diction of general relativity. Let me do general relativity for you. Take the scalar curvature and integrate it. Okay, that rediscovers general relativity in terms of taking the Euler-Lagrange equations, and it took under 5 seconds. This is not a fair way to go about things. We're now having the conversation about beauty and ugliness. A giraffe is beautiful, as is a 3-year-old child. And if I cut the head off a 3-year-old child and sew on the head of a giraffe, that is in some sense beautiful in 2 separate ways. If I take space-time and I put a Calabi-Yau threefold, complex threefold at every point, that has the feeling of a baby with the head of a giraffe. There's a certain way in which it's beautiful, particularly at the level of the analytics. So what I hear Roger talking about very often with twisters is a much more algebraic and geometric view. What I hear Brian talking about as beauty is the beauty of a renormalizable spin-2 field that's massless, falling out of the quantization of a string. These are different worlds. They're sewn together in a very unconvincing and ugly way. I don't want to rob Brian of the claim that there's beauty, because there's tons of beauty in the theory. There's also tons of ugliness and artificiality in the theory, as there is in general relativity, where the equations and the Lagrangian are beautiful, but the energy constraints are ugly and have a different origin and are meant to keep Einstein out of trouble. So what we have is a situation in which I feel like the audience never actually hears a debate about the underlying nature, and we stay on the surface level where we're talking about it's beautiful, it's ugly, it post-dicts, it predicts this. The real nitty-gritty of this thing is that Brian and Roger are both correct, and they're not coming to loggerheads in front of an audience for reasons that actually escape me.
I thought we were in loggerheads. I was trying to say that all these extra dimensions are wrong. And that's fundamental to the theory. Surely that's a loggerhead if I ever thought of one. Isn't that a loggerhead?
It's a very polite loggerhead, maybe.
No, I mean, it's completely against the way that string theory has gone. I mean, originally, when I heard the idea of string theory and the space-time had the right number of dimensions, 3 space and 1 time, I thought it was a really nice idea. And it seemed to indicate that things could be finite, which would otherwise give you divergences and so on. Brings in beautiful ideas of Riemann surfaces and mathematics, which I like. I like the idea. I thought this is a great place to go. But then they decided, look, it doesn't work unless you have 26 dimensions. So I said, okay, you can work on that. I'm working on real physics. I mean, the reason that they present that these extra dimensions, you have to excite all these degrees of freedom, I think that argument is not correct. To have a theory which involves a space which has more dimensions, the number of extra parameters is infinite. I mean, it's not like adding an extra parameter in the theory.
If you consider the mass of the material making up the Large Hadron Collider, there's enough energy there to excite the W and Z bosons. Why'd you have to turn the machine on to actually create them? It's a question of focusing the energy. So I don't know why we're disagreeing on this point, but clearly there'll be a
I agree with Brian, by the way.
You keep saying that, and that doesn't answer the question.
Well, I think
what you're saying about 26 dimensions.
Well, 26 and 10 at the same time. Now,
well, for 2 different string theories. I mean,
no, you're talking about what fermionic and bosonic, and you've got, it's not consistent. The trouble is with string theory, as I understand it now, it's not really a proper theory.
Well, they usually say eventually it's not a proper theory, it's a framework. But
that's a good way of wriggling out of it.
Yeah. Well, this is how they avoid actually having to put the same constraints on themselves as they place on others. And even in the situation where you're talking about those dimensions, because it's Lorentzian, it's really 2 less than that, so it's 24 and 8. And these are octonionic dimensions. One of 3 octonionic 3 space generates all of the large exceptional Lie groups. It's an extremely interesting idea. The fact that this doesn't work is a different argument. And what Brian is saying is true. We can't feel neutrinos in this space, thank God, because they're tearing through all of us body and soul. But the fact of the matter is that with sufficient care, we can find the world that is hidden. I think what Roger's saying, the way I interpret it, correct me because he's right here, is how come everything that we can't see that you keep talking about, you also have the right to place just outside of our Umwelt, and therefore 40 years later, it's not really 30, it's 39, 40 years almost after the anomaly cancellation, you've revved everybody up, we're super excited, and we're left with a practically North Korean level narrative of the first string revolution, the second string, then Juan found the equivalence between gauge theory and string theory, and it's like, we're waiting, and the problem is everybody's revved up, and people have lost interest in other basic theories, and people are going to move off to quantum computation and AI, and we're going to be left with digging out of this for 50 years. Why doesn't the string theory community perhaps do something before that happens, like hold a series of conferences called Strings? What went wrong? Were we listening? Who else is out there? And bring other communities in so that we don't lose the fundamental physics enterprise to Sabine Hassenfelder and her adherents.
To continue watching this video, click the link in the top left or in the description below. Or visit iai.tv for more debates and talks from the world's leading thinkers on today's biggest ideas.